11 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few quarterbacks that looked off the wire this week. The first quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, the Arizona Cardinals. Brissett, he's going to be the starter at least the next few weeks, where Kyler Murray went on IR with the foot injury. And Brissett, he got off to a bad start in that Week 10 game, but still turned things around enough to go out there and put up fantasy points in a lot of garbage time. Week 7 versus Green Bay, 279 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, 26 rush yards, a fumble loss. Week 9 at Dallas, 261 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 rush yards, a rushing touchdown. In Week 10 at Seattle, 258 passing, 2 touchdowns, 31 rush yards, a 2-point conversion, and 2 fumble losses that were taken back to the end zone for a touchdown. So Week 11, a pretty good matchup coming up here versus San Francisco 49ers. Give up the 11th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. And Brissett, he's locked in with Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison. They're starting to go out there and make plays for this Arizona Cardinal team over the last couple of weeks. So with those factors, and like I said, Kyler Murray at least out to Week 14 for this Arizona Cardinal team. Jacoby Brissett, definitely a quarterback in deeper leagues today, available in 80% of fantasy leagues. Next quarterback, Aaron Rodgers of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Rodgers coming off an awful ball game on Sunday night in Week 10 at the Los Angeles Chargers, where they got to him early and often. In that one, Aaron Rodgers, it's been a decent first season with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to be ups and downs, but this week I have him as a streaming option off the waiver wire, available in 62% of fantasy leagues. So even coming off the bad game, he's got a slam dunk matchup here in Week 11 versus Cincinnati Bengals that give up the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. And Rodgers, it was his second best game of the year, Week 7 at Cincinnati, 249 pass yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 6 rush yards on that Thursday night football game. Then Week 8 versus Green Bay, 219 pass yards, 2 touchdowns. Week 9 versus the Colts, 203 pass yards, a touchdown. And then, like I said, Week 10, it was a ball game to forget, 161 pass yards, a touchdown in garbage time, and 2 interceptions. So Rodgers, it was a bad game at Los Angeles. This week, Pittsburgh, they come back home. And like I said, Cincinnati, they can't stop anyone. So I think Rodgers, even after coming off a bad game, like I said, at 41, don't expect a big game every week. But this week, in a favorable matchup as a streaming option, he's definitely a quarterback I would add this week. Next quarterback, Tua of the Miami Dolphins. Tua, it's been an up and down season for him. Obviously, Tyreek Hill, he's been out for a while and out for the season. And we've seen some good games from Tua and some bad games, but it just seems like the pattern is one good game, one bad game for Tua. But Week 11 is a streaming option. It's a good matchup versus the Commanders that give up the 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. So the last couple weeks here for Tua, Week 8 at Atlanta, 205 pass yards, 4 touchdowns in that ball game. Week 9 versus Baltimore, 261 passing in it though. And then Week 10 versus Buffalo, a solid game, 173 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So him and Jalen Waddle, they're on the same page. Devon Achane, he does everything out of the backfield for this Miami Dolphin team. And like I said, in deeper leagues as a streaming option, I think Tua could help fantasy owners. And he's out there in 81% of leagues. The next quarterback, Marcus Mariota of the Washington Commanders. So this Commander team right now, they're 3-7 on the season. And I think Mariota is going to finish the year as the starter for Washington, where obviously Jaden Daniel hurt that elbow bad, dislocating it in that Monday night game versus Seattle Seahawks in Week 9. So the last few games for Mariota as a starter for this Commander team. Week 4 at Atlanta, 156 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, 20 rush yards, a 2-point conversion. Week 8 at Kansas City, 213 pass yards, a touchdown, 2 INTs, 28 rush yards. And then Week 10, I know some of it was garbage time versus Detroit, but he finished a decent ball game, 213 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, 22 rush yards. So for the most part, Mariota, he's going to get you anywhere from 15, 20 fantasy points for fantasy owners. And like I said, he's got some rushing upside ability. He's an offense with some good playmakers, even though I know Terry McLaurin's pretty much been out majority of the season. But you got Debo, you got Zach Ertz over there that can make plays for this team. And like I said, Mariota makes things happen. So right now, while he's out there in tons of leagues in 86%, and he has a good matchup coming up here in Week 11 at Miami that gives up the 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. He's definitely an ad this week. And the final quarterback, Davis Mills of the Houston Texans. So we'll see if CJ Stroud's going to play or not in this upcoming game here in Week 11 in Tennessee, where it's a good matchup. And Davis Mills, he hung in there. What a comeback victory it was versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. They went down 19 entering the fourth quarter was Houston, and they still went out there and made plays. So week 9 versus Denver in a tough matchup, coming in relief for Stroud, 137 pass yards, 7 rush yards. And then week 10 leading the comeback victory versus Jacksonville, a big game where they had to drop back and pass the football pretty much the whole game, where they were down out of the gate 10-0, 292 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, interception, 20 rush yards of rushing touchdown, a 2-point conversion. So Davis Mills, like I said, he's had some starter experience a few seasons ago for the Houston Texan team. Then obviously they drafted C.J. Stroud, and he was the starter from day one entering the 2023 season. So Davis Mills, like I said, he got another opportunity, went out there, made plays, and we'll see if Stroud's cleared to go in Week 11. But if he's not, I think Mills in a good matchup at Tennessee, one of the worst teams in the league, is a good streaming option, and he's available in 97% of fantasy leagues. That's a few quarterbacks I have as sleepers for Week 11 of the fantasy football.